started. Let me know if you see this okay.
We do.
All right. Excellent. So thanks for your spending a little time today with me. What I'd like to do, since we obviously can't meet face to face, is just do, if we could, a quick introduction of who all that we're talking to, and I'll start. So my name is Charlie Radman, and I obviously work for Hewlett Packard. I've been with HP now about 14 and a half years, and I work in the education team, and primarily my job for the last little over a year now has been strictly HP Classroom Manager. And so I spend a tremendous amount of time with teachers, with IT professionals in schools, with school district superintendents, talking about the value of HP Classroom Manager and talking about how best to use HP Classroom Manager in the classroom. So hopefully today I'll show you, how to use HP Classroom Manager. My recommendation is actually today that we'll go through the basic features of HP Classroom Manager, address basic questions, and then what I would recommend doing is in about a week or maybe 10 days, set up another session, and after you've had time to play with it and use it a little bit, address additional questions you may have, and then show you some advanced features that the tool also offers. But that's my role inside HP. We can certainly go down any direction you guys want to go today. We can certainly talk about any questions you may have as we go through this. So please don't hesitate to interrupt because I want you to find this time valuable for you to make sure that you feel comfortable with the solution. So having said that, if you guys could just do a quick, let me know who's in the room and kind of your role, just so I know who I'm talking to, that would be great.
Charlie Feimster, Network Technician.
Neil Rollins, IT, and I work with Charlie to help set this system up. We collaborated and tried to get this system set up. So,
Jeff Gardner, Associate Superintendent for Operations.
John Stiver, working with 1-to-1.
Russ Conrath, Media Specialist.
Chris Johnson, English teacher.
Aaron Thomas, Network Technician.
Erica Adhesion, Math teacher.
Marilyn Bennett, Special Populations Coordinator.
Ruth Ann Burdette, Business Education teacher. Mandy Freeman, Science teacher.
Marcus C. Wright, IT Department. Dan Line, IT Department.
Travis Hammond, IT Department.
Kevin Vance, IT Department.
That's it.
All right, well, thank you. So it sounds like we have, 3 teachers today, and then the rest are, superintendent and IT, a lot of IT today. So what we can do, there's actually a feature that I wasn't planning to show today that's very strict to the IT department called the Tech Console. What I would recommend doing is let's set up some time just with your IT folks and go over the Tech Console part. Teachers don't need to know about it; they don't care about it. It won't add any value to their process. But I think there's a piece of the component of the software that I think your IT team will find very valuable, and we can use the Tech Console. Neil, I don't know if you've actually installed the Tech Console there or not, but if not, we can certainly cover that as well in the training section.
yeah, we have not.
Okay. So today, what I kind of want to do is just kind of go through the tool itself. So what you should be seeing on your screen is a virtual machine, so I'm running this in VMware, of a teacher and their system. And then I also have one student, and the student's running Windows 8, because I know you guys are running Windows 8 there. And so what I wanted to do is show you kind of the teacher side, the student side, and go through the features, how the tool works. If you have questions along the way, like I said, don't hesitate to interrupt, and we can certainly go down any part of the discussion. So from the teacher side, you have what's called the tutor console or the teacher console loaded. I'll go ahead and get that launched up. And then when you come in, I know we have a math teacher in there, and I'm going to pretend to be a math teacher today because I came out of the HP Calculator team, actually, as part of education. So I set this up to be a math teacher-centric presentation. But what you'll see is you'll see the teacher's name, what the teacher teaches, so it's a math teacher, and what the objectives are. And then you'll see the different classes that I would probably teach throughout the day. So I could start my day teaching, algebra, then I could go into AP geometry, and then I may have trigonometry later on in the day. And so I come in from the teacher side, and I choose which class I'm supposed to be teaching at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Charlie.
So for today's purpose, go ahead.
Can we get you to, there are not going to be any classes set up, remember? The teacher is going to have to set up their own class. Can you show them how they would go about that? Like the wizard basically will come up and they'll have to start their own class. Because we do not make classes.
So to create your own class, you would just come in and click on New, and then you would choose how you're going to do it. So, Neil, remind me, do the students themselves have a class list that they're choosing from?
They do not.
Okay, so that student is going to type in their class at the same time, correct?
Well, the teacher will need to start their class and know the name of their class. They can use that same class every day, of course, for whatever period this is my best guess. And then the students would always connect to that class. They would know the name of that class.
Excellent. So let's start this. So when you first come in, then you're going to create what's called room mode because you're creating a new classroom. So you would click on room mode, and then you would type in whatever the room is going to be. So this may be Math 101, right? Very basic math. And then you would just click on OK, and then that's now one of your choices. And then when you tell your students that they have to type in the corresponding class into their list, they need to then type exactly as you typed in, Math space 101.
Where's new?
And then they will join your class. So this is how you would set up a class
Yeah, I don't have that. How did you get that?
initially.
Didn't bother.
So any questions on that? It's a very basic and simple way to set up a class, and you own or manage your classroom.
For our own use, it needs to be, they need to keep it short and they need to keep it sweet, and it would be nice if we could figure out some sort of naming nomenclature that we used in the schools so that the students aren't just, it's one way in one class and it's a completely different way in another class. And I don't know what the best way is. I figured that the teachers would know the best way to name their classes for different periods, because you're probably going to want a different class name for different periods so that the kids don't connect. You basically have them broken into each separate block. Is that the way you would recommend it too, Charlie? Is that the way they set them up? If they were to set up classes, is that the way they would be set up? Every individual block.
Yeah, typically that would be the way it would be set up. Either a very common name for what the class is. Some school districts that I work with, they use the teacher's name, like their last name, so Smith, Math, or Smith, and then a number for whatever the class is. That's a way of doing it, certainly. There's a couple of different, ways to do it. I agree with you. You probably want to standardize just so it's not completely different for every class that the student goes to.
So I would keep it short and sweet, maybe a room number and the period or something like that, so that way there's not any duplicates. Maybe even like CHS, GFM, GFH, the room number and the period or something like that, or the block, whatever that's something that I would recommend. Something like that can keep it unique, and also it gives a short, sweet name of the class.
And then once you guys come up with that naming convention, again, just by clicking on New and then going into Room mode, you would then enter that name in, and then every time the teacher logs into his or her machine moving forward, then that information will be saved. So they don't have to do this every time. It's just the initial setup, and then that information is now saved. And then the student would then just have to type in that information when they join the classroom. So, any additional questions before I move on?
I'll offer the choice to make this the active connection method.
Say it again.
I have a box here labeled, make this the active connection method.
Is that what they should use?
Do you want, what screen are you at? I'm sorry.
Where you have Algebra 101, I'm trying to make one called English 3 Second.
Okay.
While I'm typing.
You click on this, right?
Yes, in room mode.
Right.
See the box
And then
there?
so you're not going to want to make this the active connection method.
Okay, I will not.
No. And the reason you're not doing that is because your students don't have a corresponding list that matches yours. They're going to have to obviously type it in.
Gotcha.
So you're not going to be just teaching one class every day. Now, if you were in grade school and all you taught was third grade,
Yes.
then what you could do is you could come in and create, a third grade class, and then that would be the active method because your students would only be in third grade class all day.
Yes.
And let me just, and Charlie, let me explain to them why we could have put in class lists, but the problem is that we don't have our students broken out in Active Directory for every class and it pulls this information from somewhere, and we basically could not figure out an easy way with 3 different schools and a career center where we had students traveling between different schools to pull these classes out. That's why we are doing it the way we're doing it, so that you can create your class. You could be in the media center and create your class and have your kids there. You could do this on the fly, and I felt like that was more probably what we needed. Most teachers probably won't be moving around a lot, but there are some that will. I know Russ will want to do it on the fly, things like that. So that's the reason that we are doing it the way we're doing it.
And certainly, you're not stuck to this method forever. So if down the road you get to a point where you can assign class lists to individual students, or something changes, you can certainly switch modes. You can create, a lot of different ways of doing this. But as Neil said, based on the limitation that you don't have the ability to send down a class list today, teach individual students, this actually is a very easy way of managing it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to go in then, and for this class, I'm going to select eval because that just happens to be what I have my demo set up as. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and then click on OK. And it's going to go out, and it's going to then try to find students who are also listed as going into the eval class. So as I set up eval as my classroom, if they type in eval on the student side, they're going to then join me at the same time. So it goes out and it browses and it polls for students who are trying to join class eval. So again, if you were in English, they typed in English, whatever the naming convention you're going to come up with, it's going to poll for the students looking to join that class and then bring them in. And so then they're going to show up in this list where this little home shows up. All of your students will show up in this list. On the student side, as soon as they join, you're going to notice that they get a toolbar at the top. And this is the only thing that shows up on their system that HB Classroom Manager is recommending. Try not to take too much real estate. Obviously, on the Elite Pad, the screen is already small. But this is the amount of real estate that we take up on the student side. So this is the student side toolbar that they can use versus what the teacher sees over here on the teacher side. Once you get all of your students in, you can actually move students around. So as they come in, let's say, Johnson sits somewhere else and you have, all of your students kind of listed here. You can arrange this to how they are seated if you want. So that as you look at this screen, you're also seeing exactly how your classroom is set up. And if they sit in the same seat every day, and again, I don't know if they do or not in your schools, But if they do, then this will save it. So every time this class starts, and the students type in, you know, the classroom name to join the class, they will be in the same seat arrangement on this screen that they were the last time that they were in that class. So from a teacher use model or teacher ability to quickly look at the screen and then quickly identify how that lines up in the classroom itself, they can make it mirror how it's actually set up in the class. And again, once you've done this once, it saves it until you've made a change. So this is kind of a powerful screen, just seeing who's in your class. I'll be honest, the more powerful screen is actually the next one down, which is the one on the left-hand side, which is the ability to monitor what the students are doing on their tablets. So one of the big questions that I get from any teacher when they're trying to use the software or they get devices in the classroom is, how the heck do I know what my students are doing behind those screens when I'm up here? And this gives the teacher the ability across the entire class to see exactly everybody's desktop. So you can see a thumbnail, and again, you can auto-size this, you can make them bigger or smaller. Obviously, the more students you have in, you want to be able to see everybody's desktop at the same time. But then the thing you can do is you can simply mouse over it, and it'll expand it out. So if you want to get a grander view, you don't have to click on it or anything. You can simply mouse over it, and you get an expanded view or a zoom view of exactly what's going on that student's desktop. And let's say then that you see something going on in the desktop that you need to take action about. Let's say the student is struggling to get through an assignment, or they're doing something inappropriate that they shouldn't be doing. You can actually jump in and take over control of that student's desktop. So all you have to do is double click on the system, and it will then launch what's called an RDP session, a remote session, and allow you to then take over control of that system. So now, if you see on my screen, I am seeing the student's screen on my screen, and let's say I wanted to delete this file. So this is a demo file. I want to take it up and I want to put it in the recycle bin. When I do that, if I go over to the student screen, you'll notice that file no longer exists. I have complete control over that student's device. So you can assist them through homework this way. You can obviously jump in and redirect them back onto task. You can help them through an assignment on their system in real time. And then as soon as you're done and you want to release that, all you actually have to do is click on the close button. It closes that remote session, and now you're back into being able to see everybody else's desktop. So before I move on, any questions on that? Do you see the value that you have there? Okay, I'm going to take no questions as a good sign. The other thing that you can do from this screen, and it's very powerful, and for the teachers in the room, I don't want you to think that you have to change everything you do about teaching. That's not what the tool is designed to do. This is really designed to augment your teaching instructional method. It's not designed to shackle you to a certain way of teaching. And you're certainly not beholden to the software to teach a certain way. So, typically what you would do is everybody would have a device at their desk, and you would have your lecture period. So during your lecture period, you want to make sure that all eyes are forward, right? You have something you want to present. The best way of doing that is very similar to what you're doing today, is you just come in and you lock the device. You click on this lock button, and it will actually lock the devices down. You'll see a lock has now appeared on the student's screen. They can't do anything with the system. So while you're lecturing, all eyes are forward, the systems themselves are locked. Everything is locked out. They cannot Control-Alt-Delete out of this. They cannot escape out of this. The only way that they can get out of this lock is to actually power down their system and power it back up. And when they do that, of course, you're going to notice that they no longer appear in the classroom. And when it comes back up, if you happen to glance down at the screen, you're going to notice that they're the only one that doesn't have a lock on their system while everyone else does. So you'll be able to track to see if anyone is locking in and locking out of their system. But you have control over when they have access to the system or when they don't. And then after you've done your lecture, and it's time to then go and use the devices either to look up information, to work on an assignment, to start to work on a project, then you can come in and globally unlock everybody's device. The other option you can do is you can lock certain devices. So if you notice that somebody's playing around, or if you need to, for any purpose, lock an individual device, all you have to do is highlight that single student, and then you can click on lock as well, and then that will lock just that student's device instead of locking everybody else's in the classroom. Any questions before I move on from that? Okay, if not, then when it comes time to unlock, the other thing you can have control over is sending and receiving homework. So you can actually send out work to the students. So you can click on send and collect homework. And let's say you have something you want to send. I want to send, let's say, this PDF. It's about rainbows. So I want to send this, and I want to push it to the student's desktop. So all I have to do is browse to the file I want to send, go ahead and push it to the desktop and click on send, and then it will send it to all students' desktops. Or you can again send it to each individual student. So let's say some student wasn't there yesterday, you want to push out yesterday's homework just to that student. You can push out the homework just to that student and just highlight that student and do send or collect homework. And then when I go over to the student side, you'll notice now there's a PDF file called Rainbows over here on the student side. So you're able to push out files very simply to your class. And you can also collect homework the same way. So let's say you want to now collect homework. You can collect the rainbows. You know where it's stored. And then it will store it wherever you tell it on your computer. So let's say I want to store it into documents. And I can go ahead and say click on collect. And it will then collect that student's homework and store it into whatever folder I have set up. And so you'll see here where it says documents, and then the subfolder is Johnson, because that's the student's name that I put in here, and then that's that student's homework. So the homework itself automatically goes into individual folders based on the student's name. Any questions on that? You guys are a quiet bunch. So other features, again, I'm just going through features right at the moment, and then we'll start to talk about how to then incorporate all the features into individual lessons. So other features you have is you can control their web access. So you can say that during your class, so we have a math teacher today, during your class, they're allowed to only hit approved websites, and I want to determine what approved websites they can hit. So this is at a more granular level than what Neil sets up in his Active Directory filter. So let's say in my math class, I want to allow students to have access to Khan Academy. I use Khan to teach. You can come over here on the left-hand side under where there's a globe, and you can say these are the approved websites that my students will be able to access during my class. And Khan Academy may be one of them. And so you can allow what kind of web access they have. Maybe you want to open it up to unrestricted access, so they have a big research project, and you want to allow them to access multiple websites and go gather information from the web. You can turn off all restrictions at this web level, or you can come in and say, listen, I only want them to access the approved websites that I've hit. Or let's say you want them to access everything but a few websites. You don't want them accessing Facebook, you don't want accessing Twitter or Instagram. You can actually block websites and say, listen, I don't care, they can hit most of the web, but I just don't want them hitting these very specific websites. And you can actually add websites into here. So you can come over here very quickly and click on add. Say, I don't want them to access Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter and say OK. and now they can't access Twitter when they're in my class. So again, it gives the teacher full control over specific needs of the class. So, you know, in social studies, you may have a set of websites that you like to use. You may want to use YouTube Education. You may want to use some of the Microsoft content that's available for Microsoft that's available. You could actually have those websites preloaded in your list, and then you can give your students access just to those websites during your class. You can do the same thing, by the way, for applications. So let's say during your class you only want them to have access to certain applications in your class. They don't need to be launching certainly games. Maybe you want them to not be able to launch the Calc app during your math course. You can actually either prevent or allow certain applications to be accessed the very same way that you do websites. So again, it gives the teacher control over what they want their students to access and when. And again, you can just say allow all applications, only allow approved applications, or block any restricted applications I don't want them to have access to. And again, this is at a more granular level per class than what may be set up in your Active Directory today.
I'm sorry, could you show me where the applications?
It's on the left.
Thank
On the
you.
left-hand side,
Thank you.
right under the world,
Does it categorize like the apps, like as a gaming app? Because who knows what they have downloaded on their tablet?
it doesn't, but that is almost the real reason why you would set up what approved applications you want them to have access to.
Okay.
Because then it restricts everything other than that. So if they've downloaded some games, you know, while it's home or, you know, when it's outside of school property, you could just say, listen, in my class, I only want them to access certain applications, and just click on approved only. Then it blocks everything else.
Okay.
And again, the same thing by
the conference.
the same thing would happen via the web. So any kind of website URL, again, you could just, instead of blocking everything, you know, typing in all the stuff you want to block, just type in what you want them to have access to and just that. So other things that you can do with the tool is question and answer mode. And, you know, one of the things, obviously, that is very powerful that I think everybody agrees with on Common Core, there's not a lot everybody agrees with on Common Core, but is really to keep the student engaged and involved. And, you know, one of the big things, at least that I hear from teachers, and I remember when I was in school and with my kids being in school, you know, when you ask a question to the class, let's say you go up onto the board and you're in math class and you type in, you know, how to find the area under a curve, you know, for the calculus class. You type in the question, and then you ask some students to answer it. You ask them to raise their hand. You know, if you're lucky, maybe you get 20% of your class raise their hand, 80% don't. And so through this tool, what you can do is you can do some real-time formative assessment and make it more engaging with all of the class. So there are different ways of doing that. So let's say you ask that question up on the board, and then you say, listen, I wanted you first to answer, which is more kind of a game show mode. So I'm going to ask the question, and then whoever presses the space bar first on their device, or whoever touches their tablet first on the device, gets the answer. And it'll then come up and it'll show me all the students and, you know, who picks, or who, you know, pressed the button first. And then you can call on them, so it keeps it very engaging. You can do the same thing with enter to answer. So you can say, listen, I want you to type in what the answer is. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think about it, and I'm going to give you 10 seconds to type it in. And of course, you know, you can extend that out. So I'm going to give you, you know, a minute to type it in. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to think about it, and then, you know, we'll give everybody a minute to answer the question. And then you'll be able to see what everybody types in and get engagement from everyone. So it keeps everyone very engaged throughout the class. So you can do speed to answer. You can do speed to just press the button. The other thing you can try to do, or you can do, is what's called potluck or roll the dice. So this way, as everybody is sitting here and you want to keep everyone engaged, you can do what's called padlock and push it. It will then go through out of all of your students and then select a student just at random to answer a question. So, and then you can share that, and on the student screen, they would see the dice rolling around, and they would see it going through and trying to pick someone. So, again, it keeps them very much engaged throughout the class. So you can do it kind of in a fun way, certainly. And oh, by the way, you don't have to do it just based on individual students. If you break them up into teams, you can then do team first answer or team speed to answer, either one, entering an answer. So you have the ability to do it either based on individual students or based on teams working in collaboration together. Then when you've selected, whoever the winner is, you can actually award points. So you'll see Johnson here right now has 4 stars. And if you go over to Johnson's page, you'll see the 4 stars up here. They can collect stars, based on how well they've done. Again, it just keeps them very much engaged. The other way you can do formative assessment is even more powerful, which is you come down here and you can ask a question, and you can pre-type out a question to ask. And so I've got one in here today that I've already entered, saying that rainbows are a result of refraction through water droplets. True or false? And I can either type this in on the fly, or I can have this preloaded in my system. I can send this out to the students. And then you'll see over here on the student side, they get this big pop-up on their screen, and they have to answer the question. So now you're going to know not just what the 20% who raised their hand know, or trying to call on those students that kind of hide in the back of the class. You're going to have to get an answer from everyone in the class to know, did the last 20 minutes that I've been talking and lecturing, did it resonate with the students? So you can get a real-time formative assessment of how they're understanding whatever topic you're trying to cover. So let's say I say true, and I'm going to go ahead and submit it. When I come back, I'm going to see that 100% of the students answer true, and then by student, I know what the answer is. I see that they got it true, and they've marked it. I would then also know who got it wrong or marked it false. So you would be able to see how your students are doing by student, and maybe only the 20% got the topic, and maybe the other percent who didn't raise their hand didn't really get it. You would then be able to know that in almost real time. So the quiz functionality is very easy to use, and certainly suggest this being between this quiz part, or the survey/quiz part, individual questions, and the ability to lock the device and the ability to monitor student desktops. That right there, those 3 functions are about 80% of what you're going to do every day with the software. There's a whole lot of other things that you do, and we'll talk about those. But that's about the 80% of what you use the software for every day. Any questions on that before I move on?
Can they log off? Like, can they refuse?
Can they log off?
They can log off,
So they can refuse to be on this program.
yes.
So that has to be more of a teacher.
You'll see
You
them
log
when-
off, then you can't use your tablet.
You'll see them when they log off. You'll see them drop off, and you can say,
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because back up here on the home page, you would see them disappear. You would also see their screen under the screen share page disappear. And so you would know if they'd logged off or not. So let me show you how easy it is to add a question, because it really is very, very quick and simple. So let's say I want to come in here and I want to type in a question. So, are you enjoying today's lesson? Whatever the question may be. And then you can choose what kind of response they get. So yes or no, yes, no, maybe, true or false. You can even type in, let's say it's multiple choice, and you say, 30%, 50%, 75%, 100%. And all you do is you type that in, separated by a comma, and now you have that question. And then you can go back and say, this is the question I want to ask my students. So it could be multiple choice, it can be true, false, A, B, C, or D, any of those. And I'm going to send that out to them, the students. So now you're going to see on the student side, oh, I have to pick an answer. So now I'm going to say, I'm really enjoying this class 100%. I'm going to go ahead and click on submit. And then coming back, you'll see that 100% of my students right now chose 100%. But let's say only some of them chose 30%. You would see that broken out by a class list. You see how everybody in the class answered. But you also see the percentage of your class. So again, maybe 20% got the answer right, 80% didn't get the answer right. You would be able to quickly look down here and see overall how are your students doing. Are they understanding the concept? So you can ask these questions on the fly. You can type them in very quickly as you see on the fly, or you can have them preloaded when you start up your class. And they're very easy to then just save on. Any questions on that? If not, then some other things that you have control over that you can do. You can control when they can print and where they can print. So you can either say they have unrestricted access. You can block their printing. You can pause printing and only allow printing at certain times of the day. You can make sure they can't print duplicates. So you have control if you have a printer in your room of when that printer gets used or not. You can monitor activity through chat. So there is a chat feature up here under Communicate where you can communicate with your students. So you can chat back and forth. You can also allow students to chat back and forth with each other. Most classes don't do that, but you actually have the capability of doing that. And you can then monitor that activity. You can send it out as an announcement to all of the class. So let's say I want to send out an announcement that, you've only got 5 minutes left of this test. You've only got, all homework is due tomorrow at the start of class. Whatever kind of announcement you want to do, you can send an announcement to the class, and they will hear you through the microphone. So let's say it's a language lab, and you want to talk to everybody in the language lab. You have the capability of sending out an announcement to everyone wearing their headphones. They would be able to hear you. You have control over when or if they have access to CD or DVD, to the USB. You can mute everybody's sound at one click of a button. So let's say you have taken them out to Khan Academy, you've taken them out to a web page that has sound playing, and you don't want the sound to be playing in your